Hi there, my name is Heidi Williams and I am the Mayor of Thornton, and welcome to Thornton Now. This is a show that I do to just inform citizens of things that are going on here in our community. And this month we are really focused on the holidays, and a lot of times the community really gets together and works to feed people in need, clothe people in need. I have a food and sock drive going on right now that you can see at our website. But the fact of the matter is we have a lot of people that are in need all year long. And so I wanted to just bring in a few key people to talk to you about what they're doing in the city of Thornton and around the whole metro area in this case. And hear from these folks. We have Fermin Avila and Dr. Frankie Olais. And they're from United Way and 211. And I just wanted them to tell you a little bit more about what they do and how they can help you or someone that you know that might be in need. So Dr. Frankie, let's start with you.
Hi, Mile High United Way, and so we work very closely with 211. So I am the VP for Community Engagement at Mile High United Way, and I oversee the work called United Neighborhoods. And so we really work with the children and families in and around local elementary schools. But like I said, in partnership with 211 to really help help families navigate, that those systems can be complicated, trying to link them to key resources. And I think this is where 211 with our neighborhood navigator comes in. And so for us to do our work with United Neighborhoods, with the families, the children, and the schools, how do we kind of wrap those schools, with support services that they need? It could be clothing, fooding, assistance, utilities, whatever those things. But Fermin can tell you, really go deep about how 211 does that, not only for the schools, but our community in general.
Great, Fermin.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about 211, what your role is there, and really what 211 has to offer.
Yeah. So I serve as the director of the 211 program
at
Mile High United Way. And our 211 program is a line that connects people to community resources. Oftentimes, families, as you mentioned, families need help connecting to resources. And one of the biggest barriers is not knowing how to start. So our 211 program tries to remove that barrier to accessing resources. It's a line that you could call, you could text you text your zip code to 898-211, you can live chat us, you can email us, you can drop by our location, and when you reach one of our representatives, we try to understand what is the scenario, what are the needs that you're asking for, and what are some of the other resources that would be beneficial to support that situation. Oftentimes we find that families are looking for financial assistance to cover either a rent payment or utilities, their water bill, but we also get a lot of calls from families who are looking for food resources, a place to stay at night, legal support, a tenant who needs to understand what their rights are, or vice versa. Someone who's renting a place and needs to understand what are their rights as a landlord. So 211 is a service that tries to communicate information to people to help them prepare to make the next decision.
So basically they'll call in and they'll give you their scenario and you give them a little advice, but mainly are you just giving them, here's the person that you need to call and here's the questions you might want to ask?
Correct.
Okay.
So we never give advice.
Oh, good. Okay, really glad you clarified me. Okay, great.
So when a family calls in, the easiest part of our job is responding to whatever they're asking for. So if someone says, I'm calling for rent because I lost my job, that's the easy part of our job, saying, hey, great, let's find what resources exist. Mm-hmm. There are times where resources may not exist. And in that scenario, it's our responsibility to help that individual think through what are some options that exist within their own networks. So we'll brainstorm with individuals, and then we'll also bring around, you mentioned you lost your job. Do you need help finding a new job? Can we help find an organization that crafts resumes or does interview skills or helps with work tools if you need a certification to move into your next role? We have resources to support all of those needs.
I think that's great. I mean, we as citizens, and even me, frankly, as the mayor, and we talked about this, I didn't know about all those services. I had heard about 211 from Dr. Cog, which is our Regional Council of Governments, and that they're basically the ones who bring in federal money. They get the federal money in and then they divvy it out, mostly for transportation and aging services. And so I knew about 211 from the aging side of Dr. Cog, but that was kind of it. And it's just interesting to me to find out that you guys do so much more and really help the people that are in need or really just don't know how to navigate the system. I think for me, the thing that always concerns me is that we have a lot of people that need services, and the services exist, but how do you make that connection? And we'll have Jalen from our staff here in a little bit to talk about what we're doing in the city of Thornton to maybe complement what you all are doing. So I really appreciate that. Dr. Franke, talk to me a little bit about the United Neighborhoods. I know you have, kind of a new exciting announcement for this area. Talk a little bit about that and what your goals are for that program here.
So in United Neighborhoods, so yes, we're starting to work with Adams County, specifically with Adams 12 School District. And so we're working in 2 local elementary schools that are kind of in unincorporated Adams. But it's been great. I think Adams 12 has been a great partner in trying to do that and figuring out, well, what are the needs, again, of the children and the families that attend those 2 local elementary schools. And so our goal really is, several goals, is really to help families and children thrive. So things that we're tackling are things like chronic absenteeism. How to bring quality early childhood education experiences. And I know this is something, a personal love of yours that you really help move along. And so those are at least, 2 of the goals that we're trying to really work with. And, one key way of doing that is leadership, is really building up the leadership of the parents, because they're leaders already, right? They're vocal, they're strongest advocates for their children. And so what do we need to do that, right? How do we do that? And I think going back to 211, we have a neighborhood navigator who, is a 211 person who comes into the schools with us and really tries to, focus on which parents need the most support. This is for all parents, for all families, but which one of those really needs supports to perhaps helping their getting their children to school, for example. Perhaps there's a food pantry that we need to link them up with resources, clothing. What are those things? School supplies. What are those things to really encourage and support families to get their children to school so that they are reading at grade level, right? 3rd grade level, or they can be kinder ready and really help them succeed. And so those are some of the key goals for United Neighborhoods. And one of those key partnerships, again, is 211 with our neighborhood navigator. But you might want to say something about, kind of the 211 being multilingual. I mean, that's
I was going to ask that. We have a lot of people in our community that either don't speak English or they are definitely not first language English, and so it's a struggle to call. I can't even imagine trying to call in another country and ask questions like this, not knowing the other language. So that's a huge barrier for some people here.
Exactly. So you might want to just say a little bit about how you guys do that.
Yeah, so within our 211 program, we have bilingual staff in English and Spanish. We also have a partnership with a translation service. So we can translate upwards of a couple hundred languages. The most challenging part is identifying what language is on the other line. And once we do that, we can get a translator and connect that person with the resources that they need.
I know when I served on the Adams 12 School Board, I was shocked to know that we had, I think it was at the time, over 80 languages spoken, and I think that's definitely increased since then. It was in 2009, and so it's wonderful that you said it's not just English and Spanish, because we have such a broad diversity of languages spoken here, and not just in Thornton, but in Colorado, so that's awesome. How do you build trust, right? So my experience as a mom, and then when I was young, I worked in a pediatrician's office, and then I was on the school board. And my experience with moms is that, like me, we're, like you said, the strongest advocates for our kids. And, I'm not just gonna trust the first person who comes up to me and says, hey, let me help you out. Let me, come in and, help you get your kid to school. I mean, how do you guys work with the communities to build that trust and let them help you?
Sure. So one of the biggest things I would say is we show up over and over and over again, right? As you know, trust is not a one-time thing, right? They've got to see you. You've got to be able to interact with them. You've got to speak with them. But one of the things I would say is our Leadership Advisory Council, specifically that's targeted towards schools. So we ask the schools to help us identify some of their leaders, their current leaders, and so how do they sit on this council and then help make decisions about our funding as Mile High United Way? Right, so they get to have the power in terms of where should our investments be? What should they look like? And so I think that's part of building trust, because you're not coming from the outside and saying, I can help you solve your problems.
Right.
We'll figure it out. Right. Instead, you're really asking for that feedback and saying, what does your community look like? What kind of help do you want? And how do you want it? And that's a long time, that conversation, and you just have to have it over and over and over again. And with time, you will build that trust. And I think meeting people where they are, right? And I think this is where 211 and United Neighborhoods comes very much together, because we're patient. We listen. We talk, we share ideas and things like that, and say, okay, so where are you at? What kind of help do you need? And how do we help best support you and your family? So I think trust is something that it's ongoing. You've got to be patient, and you've got to show up.
I think that's interesting that you say be patient, right? Because we have, and mostly in our south and southwest part of the city, we have families in need. Some of the infrastructure is older, all of the infrastructure is older, except that what we've replaced. And people get impatient and say, well, how come you're not going faster? But I think it's kind of a two-way street. Like, we have to be patient, but then sometimes the citizens have to be patient too. But it's hard when they have, a sidewalk that's not repaired, or they don't have access to a grocery store, which isn't really the city, but then what can the city do? And so those are some of the things we're looking at, is how do we get a food pantry in Southwest Thornton where there isn't really one now. There's one in Federal Heights that's kind of close, but it's not in Southwest Thornton. And so those are kind of things we're working on too, and being patient is really difficult for me. That's not my strength, but I'm glad that we have people like you who are patient. What kind of advice do you have for people who might be struggling, someone that's struggling, not just throughout the holidays, but in general? Tell them how to call, reach out, that sort of thing.
So people are always welcome to dial 211. It's a place that you can call. If you need support and you need help, you can call and we'll provide those resources. But if you want to give back some way, either by identifying an organization to donate to or to volunteer for, or you have some things around the house that you want to pass on, we can connect people with the different organizations within their community that can make that happen. We also have, coming up in January, a tax line. So as families prepare to do their taxes, we can help guide them to places that'll do it for free. And also raise awareness about what are those tax credits that you should be cognizant of, and that generate refunds for low to moderate waged families.
Right.
So we provide all that information here in January.
That's fantastic. And I know that we'll have sites here in Thornton as well that'll be on your list, and so that'll be fantastic. And I know that, I guess the last thing I wanted to kind of have you talk about a little bit is the senior population, our what we now call active adults. But we also have some that are truly senior citizens. They might be at home, they might not be able to get out, maybe they don't have transportation. Are those things that you can help someone with as well if they're struggling and don't have resources for that?
Absolutely. So our database consists of over 8,000 resources across the state of Colorado. We work with those organizations to make sure that our information is accurate, that it's up to date, that when we give that information over to someone to reach out to, that it's going to pan out and it's going to be the right information for them. So we work with different cities. We collect a lot of data. We work with counties to really try to understand what are those needs within the community. And as we hear from individuals who utilize the 211 system, we'll try to build resources to support those needs. An example might be seniors who are looking to defer their tax payment. We have resources to support that. Or home delivered meals. Whatever that resource might be, we have hundreds of resources to meet the needs of seniors and broader populations.
And not just via online or your smartphone, right? Because not everybody has one or understands how to use it. So, yeah.
That's always an option.
That's good. That's wonderful. Thank you. One last question. How long has Mile High United Way and 211 been partners?
So, Mile High United Way launched in 1887, so a very long time.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah. In 2003, they launched the 211 line.
Okay.
Prior to that, for 30 years, they hosted an information referral line that had a 10-digit number that you would dial, and we do very similar things. And in October of 2003, we launched the 211 dial code.
Makes it a lot easier.
It does.
Everyone can remember that.
Easy to remember number, free service, multilingual.
That's awesome. Well, thank you both for coming and just letting our citizens know what's going on out there. And I hope you enjoyed your drive here to Thornton, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Well,
thank you so much. Yeah, take care. We'll be right back with Jalen Stotler, who will be talking about the different ways we're connecting citizens in needs to the services in the community.
Wouldn't it be great if you had a way to let Thornton know when a pothole suddenly appears? Or when other issues in the city need attention? Like a streetlight going out, or some broken concrete on a sidewalk. Now there is. It's an app for your mobile phone called My Thornton. Just tap the app and you can report dozens of issues directly to Thornton staff. You can also get updates on the issue as it gets resolved.
So I think I've got everything I need. Do you want to stop for lunch or something?
Yeah, that sounds great, but I'm not really sure what's around here. Do you know?
Well, in Thornton, when we have this question, we tap the app, the My Thornton app.
Thornton information is literally just a tap away with the new My Thornton app. City information, news, restaurants, and more are all at your fingertips. Just visit the App Store for your Android or iPhone and search for Thornton. There you will find the My Thornton app. Download and install the app and you are ready to find information about city events, shopping, news, and you can communicate with City Hall about issues 24/7. Just tap the app.
Welcome back to Thornton Now. We are here with Jalen Stotler, who is our Community Connections Manager, and we're going to talk to her about ways that here in the city of Thornton we can connect people with resources. Just, was it this year that we started Community Connections?
Yes.
We just renamed it, so I have to get used to that. But Community Connections is an outreach service that helps people get connected to the services here in the community or in the near surrounding areas. And so Jalen Stotler is in charge of that. And so why don't you talk to us about your role, your title, and really how people can get connected with you.
Sure. So I'm really proud to lead the Community Connections team. We started officially in March but got our first staff in September, so it really is a new division. And our goal is to serve as a one-stop resource shop for our Thornton residents, so they've got one point of contact when they have a need. You just heard from Fermine and Dr. Frankie. They have an incredible statewide database of 8,000 plus resources. We use that database in Community Connections. We're also going out into our Thornton community and we're connecting with the faith-based community. We're connecting with nonprofits, non-governmental organizations, the county, and really inventorying and surveying what exists in the community. How can our residents access the services? What is the eligibility criteria? What's the process? What can they expect, so that we let them know beforehand what their experience will be like when they do connect with those service providers. We also want to develop relationships with those service providers so we can make warm handoffs. So we know when we refer somebody, for example, to a shelter, we already know what their capacity is, we already know how many beds they have available, and we can give them a name of a contact to follow up with or make a call on their behalf to let the resource provider know that this person will be coming through the doors.
That's really critical because oftentimes when you're in that situation, it's really hard to ask for help. And so when you ask for help and you get pushed off to another place and then you don't get help, or you have to, they're like, well, call this place, call this place, call this place. I think that's what you and 211 and others are doing to really make sure they're getting to the right person the first time. Yes. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than that. So that's really awesome that you're doing that. And how do you, how do people know where to find you or how to find you? How do they know that we're doing this? I mean, we've had Thornton Cares for a long time where you can go on our website and click on that and see a list of resources. But there's a lot of people out there who, as we said earlier, don't have access to internet. How do they find out about us?
You're right. So we're going into the schools, we're meeting with principals, with guidance counselors, with teachers. We're partnering with the faith-based community and learning about the pastors and leadership and the projects that they're doing, and really through building those relationships and letting them know the services that we provide, we can make those connections so that when somebody comes into a church or into a school or into Adams County and they need a service that's not provided at the site that they walk into, they can say, hey, here's a stack of cards for Community Connections. Let me connect you to the staff over there. They want to help. And you mentioned it's hard to ask for help. It can be embarrassing, and there's a negative stigma attached, unfortunately, sometimes for asking for help. And so we want to really reduce those barriers and make it very comfortable to ask for help. We want to make it easy to ask for help. So we try to normalize the experiences. We know that the cost of housing is going up in Denver metro area, and a lot of people are struggling financially. So having a person on the other end of the phone or on the other side of the desk that can warmly receive your story and can sit down with you for a moment and talk about your needs has been really impactful for our community members.
I think that's amazing. I can't think of a nicer person to be running this. Yeah, I know we've worked together for a long time, I think since I've been the mayor, so about 7 years, on different needs in the community. We've worked on hunger, you sat in on when we were starting Food for Hope, and we've worked on all kinds of different things for the needs of our citizens. And so I think you have the right personality and the right heart for it, but I know that you have new staff as well that I'm sure probably have the same you know, caring, wonderful personality for this job. You know, this was something that I felt really strongly about that we should do in the city, and you know, cities aren't funded to do this. That's really a county or a state job, if you will. But I just kept thinking it's so instrumental that the cities have some kind of way to connect people with resources, as you know. So I'm thrilled that you all are doing this. What else is going on that you want people to know about?
Sure. So in addition to the resource connection, we have a variety of internal programs that we operate within Community Connections. So by way of example, you mentioned a senior that could be isolated. We have incredible partners in the community. One of those partners is Community Reach Center. And so we've paired up with them to offer a senior peer counseling program. For 7 weeks, 2 hours each week, we train seniors age 55 and older to become peer counselors. We train them in listening skills, empathy building, and then they go into the homes of these potentially isolated seniors and they have a conversation and they work through some difficult and challenging circumstances. We can provide the resource support on the back end, but really the role is to be there as a listening ear. And that is a program that we started a couple of years ago. We also have a Relatives Raising Children conference for those grandparents that are suddenly taking in a kiddo or other relative that's taking in a kiddo that's not biologically their own. Usually this happens suddenly when a kiddo comes into the home due to substance abuse, homelessness, incarceration, a number of really challenging, traumatic experiences. So we're able to wrap these families with supports during our conference and during monthly support groups. We have presentations that are offered to let them know about the legal resources available so that they can navigate guardianship, which can be super challenging. For sure. And so parents, the new parents who are parenting again, they're not prepared financially, emotionally, physically. It's such a task. So we try to connect them with the legal supports, with financial supports, with emotional support during our monthly groups. We're really involved in the senior community and also in the youth community and in homelessness. We also, as you mentioned, support health equity and making sure that our residents have a place to go to get healthy food into their bellies.
Right, that is so important. That's one of my passions, as you know, but I think that's great. So you were talking about grandparents raising grandkids, or you know, somebody who's not their actual biological child. My aunt actually is raising her 2 children, and there's so much that people don't understand about that goes into it, because you know, the kids are traumatized because mom and dad aren't there or whatever happened, you know, and you know, grandma and grandpa are traumatized because they thought they were done raising kids. And so I'm so glad to hear that you're also doing that, and that's something that should be done throughout the United States because it's kind of an epidemic. It seems to be happening more and more. So
1 in 10 children are living in a home that is headed by a non-biological parent.
That's far more than I thought. So thank you for that information. Wow, you guys have a lot of work to do.
We do, we do. Our hands are full.
Yeah, well.
And we wouldn't have it any other way. We really, you mentioned the other staff. We've got Patty, who has 12 years experience with community health. working for a health department, and Jesus, who has 12 years experience working with public schools. So they're very passionate about the work that they're doing, bilingual in English and Spanish. We're here, we're ready to serve our community. I mentioned that we use the United Way 211 database. We're also getting all of the more local resources. So we're here. When you don't know where to turn to us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching this really important show. And it's important today because I think we do have a lot of people that are struggling and don't know where to turn. And you at home might know somebody like that as well. So have them give Jalen a call or call 211 and just help people get connected to the resources, because you're our voice for us, because we can't certainly get to everybody. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful, happy holiday and a happy new year, and we'll touch back in January. Thanks.